Okay, so we have our flute together, but the question is, how do we hold it? Where do we put our hands? Very, very, very good question. Okay, so let's start with our right hand. I find it's easier because there's less keys that we have to skip and miss. Now, your right hand needs to be pushing the flute away from your body. A lot of people will pick up the flute and suddenly do this. Looks kind of awkward and it doesn't work. So please make sure that your right hand is pushing the flute away from your body. Now, the keys that our fingers need to belong on. Now, our thumb is going to go underneath the flute, just under here on the bottom of the tube. Now, next to that, we're going to have our ring finger, and our ring finger is going to go on the first home key of the body. So we have our foot joint here, and then our body, and then the first key on our body, that's where we want to put our third finger. Now, our middle finger, we want to put on the key next to it, and nice and easy, pointer, next key. Now, our pinky will rest predominantly on this key here. Occasionally we'll use the other two, or if you have an intermediate or advanced flute, you might actually have an extra key. But on a student flute, we only have the two, and this is where your pinky will belong most of the time. So just to go over that again, grab your right hand, and what you need to do is you need to put your third finger, your ring finger, on the key, the first key on the body, our middle finger on the next key, and our pointer on the next one. I like to call this 4, 5, 6 because 1, 2, 3 is on the other hand. So 4, 5, 6, and then our pinky. Now, for the left hand, it is a little bit more complicated. Now, you'll notice my hand right now is on the keys, and yet I have actually skipped 2 keys. So when you grab your pointer, make sure that you do not put your finger on the very, very first key of the flute. We actually want to skip this one. Now, when the creators of the flute were putting this together, they figured out the perfect places to put each of the holes to create the best possible sound. But if I was to use this key in this place, it would be really, really awkward and really far for me to stretch. So what they've done is they've actually created a secondary key. Now, if you look closely, you'll notice that this key here actually doesn't have a hole or anything. It's just an empty key, and the whole purpose of this one is just to push this first one down. So pointer, first finger of our left hand, skip the first key, and then we want to go on to the second key. Now we want to skip the next key again, and then we want to put our middle finger on the key after it, and then our third ring finger we want to put on the next key. Now, our pinky will eventually use this key, although we probably won't use it too much immediately. So just to go over, first key, skip. Then we put our pointer on the second key on the flute. Third key on the flute, we skip, and then we put our next finger and then our next finger. Now we'll know this is right because this lever is right next to my third finger, and that is where our pinky will eventually go. Now on the other half of the flute, we have our right hand, and we go back from the foot joint, and then the first key we put our third one on, we layer them up, and then our pinky will go on the lever. So I like to call these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pinky and pinky. Now, as I mentioned at the start, our thumbs. Now, one of my thumbs is going to be underneath the key, directly underneath. The other one actually has a key or 2 keys for me to play. So left hand has 2 keys, 2 thumb keys on the back, and I want to be putting my thumb, I personally put my thumb on this one the majority of the time. You can put them on either. It doesn't really matter until you start getting into notes, and I'll explain that a little bit later. So thumb on the back key, thumb underneath. And that is how you hold your flute.